Scott Hamilton is presenting his new work live in Jamboree, or Jamboree we say in Spanish we used to say Jamboree. We should say Jamboree tonight, a new record live in Barcelona. And this record was recorded a year ago.
Yeah.
And with the usual lineup who accompanies you when you play gigs in Barcelona.
Yeah.
And our question is that, do you remember the first time you played in Barcelona?
Yes, but I wish I could remember the name of the hall. It was an old music hall, beautiful, like an opera house, but old, very old.
La Paloma maybe, or?
There was a television show from there, 1986 or 80s, no, maybe 87, 1987. And I was, my first tour in Spain, and we played in Barcelona in this music hall. Very beautiful old music hall, and it was a television show because I've seen it since. Some of the guys have copies of it.
I will look for it.
But that was the first time.
Why did you decide to record this album here in Jamboree?
Well, for me, Jamboree is one of the very few real jazz clubs in the old style that is still existent. There are a few in Europe. There used to be hundreds and hundreds of them, you know. In every town there was some place you could play jazz. But now the club business has changed, and there are more concerts, and it's not possible to keep a club like this running for most people. So I think it's important for the music. For me, jazz music works better in a club like this. The sound of the room and people being very close, and the atmosphere of the place is very important for the music. And so when we had an opportunity to record, I thought this would make a very good place to do it. Also, I hadn't done a live recording in a few years. I've made a few recordings in this studio, but not live. The last one was 2002 or 2003, something like that. So I thought it would be nice to have a live recording again.
Your biography in your webpage says that you were attracted as a kid by the sound of Johnny Hodges.
Yes.
Later you shared the stage with swing legends such as Roy Eldridge, Benny Goodman, Hank Jones, to name a few. And it's said that your way of playing was inspired by the great saxophone players of those years. Could you explain something more about your beginnings, those years?
Well, I grew up with jazz music from that era because my father was an artist, a painter, but he loved jazz and listened to it all his life. And when I was a little boy, I heard a lot of jazz from my father, but I also took an interest in it myself. It was very exciting to me. And my first instrument was the clarinet. I took some clarinet lessons, but I wanted a saxophone very badly because I had heard Johnny Hodges on records, and I wanted to make that sound. You know? As I get older, I heard more things. I played in some rock and roll bands and blues bands and things, but I ended up playing jazz in the end because it kept attracting me back. You know, you hear Lester Young or Gene Ammons or Eddie Lockjaw Davis, Illinois Jacquet. These people were the inspirations that made me want to learn to play the saxophone. When I hear somebody on a record or go see somebody like this play, that it just made me want to do that.
Some days ago in an interview, Keith Jarrett said that standards are the vehicle for musicians to show how they are. We know you are a musician very fond of standards, and we would like to ask you a question about them. So there are some musicians who are currently making versions of groups like Radiohead, or songwriters like Joni Mitchell, Nick Drake. So the question is, could these songwriters along the years become a source for new standards as important as Cole Porter, Gershwin, or Kern, Berlin, Hammerstein, or those great composers?
I don't know if it's certainly not. It's got nothing to do with the material, whether the quality of the material. In other words, I think it's possible, yes, but it's more difficult with the modern songs to make a jazz standard of it for technical reasons. The song forms have changed, and you no longer have. With these standards, we had they loaned themselves to playing many choruses. The problem with a lot of modern songs, even the really good ones, is that they don't work in the same way. Songwriting has changed, and something that's a very good song doesn't necessarily make a very good jazz vehicle. Sometimes you get the harmonic framework out and you realize that's not where the appeal of the song is. It's not in the harmony, it's somewhere else. I would like to see it be possible. I mean, obviously guys have made jazz songs out of a lot of material from the 60s and 70s, Stevie Wonder and Michael Franks and people like that, but it's more difficult. You have to figure out a way to do it, and I'm not maybe the guy who's clever enough to figure that out, you know. But somebody might. I hope they do.
After interviewing some saxophonists, the idea is that sound doesn't come from the instrument, but or from the equipment, but from oneself.
Yeah.
How important is the material in Scott Hamilton's personal sound?
The equipment.
Yes.
Well, I think it's very important for your comfort. That's what equipment is for. Equipment is for your personal, to help you. It's not going to make you. It won't create a sound. You're going to sound like yourself no matter what you play. But you can help yourself to get certain sounds, maybe by. Well, certainly mouthpieces can help you go in a certain direction, maybe. For me, I play the same thing year after year. I changed mouthpieces a few years ago because I was getting older, and I found that my stamina was less, so I had to adjust the equipment.
It's personalized for you, which is the standard?
I don't have anything unusual. My equipment's very old, but it's fairly standard. Selmer saxophone and an Autolink mouthpiece. I find it's really just a question of finding something that you're comfortable with, and for me, staying with it. Because if I begin to experiment with things, that's very distracting. It can take you away from the important stuff, you know.
So your saxophone as well as your sound is plenty of nostalgia, we could say.
Yeah, sure, certainly tradition anyway, but for me it's a natural thing. It's not something that I do because I believe in it. It's something I do because that's me. It's the way I feel. That's the way that comes out, you know.
How long has your super balance been with you?
I've had this instrument since 1981. I bought this from a guy in New York in 1981, and it was brand new. I mean, it had never been played before, so it was beautiful. And when I see it now, it makes me a little sad because it's getting old. But it has been 30 years, you know. It's seen a lot of gigs, and it's still a great horn. Beautiful instrument.
We want to ask you about what's your opinion about the present way of getting and listening to music. I mean music for free, I mean music sold on the internet, songs sold individually. Do you think about all this at the time of starting a new project?
Well, I mean, this is the way the technology controls the business, and it's this technology that you're talking about has upset the entire music business, and this affects all of us. But like all technological things, it's useless to fight them. When recordings came in the last century, a lot of musicians were outraged and very angry because they thought this would stop all live music. Now you have all the musicians are outraged and the recording companies are outraged because now they're in trouble. I don't know what's going to happen. It has changed. We often talk about the way young people listen to music now on the computer as being, I mean, it's a great thing that they're able to hear almost anything immediately, which is wonderful. If I'd had that when I was young, I think of all of the music that I would have been able to hear. But in a way, it's unfortunate because it's almost too easy. When we were young, we would get excited about something, and then we had to go out and try to find it. And by the fact that it was difficult to find, sometimes when we did find a record, we would play it for over and over and over again. We knew every single note in that record because we worked so hard to get it. And nowadays, I'm afraid a lot of kids, they listen to one thing and then they click and they're on to something else, and then they click and they're on. I'm afraid they never get to hear things enough. And I feel bad for them because they're missing a very important experience, which is to become really familiar with the music, you know.
There is a statement in our webpage which says that, I think it's taken from the liner notes of Scott Hamilton Plays Standards, which says Scott Hamilton plays by ear. And then following the statement, there are plenty of comments of people who say that he's not the only one, that there are many other great musicians who do. other ones who say that it's not possible to play the way you play without reading music.
Yeah,
So we would like to
well.
know to which extent this is true.
Well, when people say I don't read music, this is what I say because I don't want people to be disappointed and hire me for a gig and put a piece of music in front of me and I won't be able to do it. I don't sight read saxophone music. I could read a simple melody on the piano. I know where C is and where G is, but I never learned to read saxophone parts that are difficult. I can only read the very, very simplest things. When it comes to harmony, I know what chords I'm playing on, and I know some music theory. I mean, I've been a musician for 40 years. I've learned a lot about music, but I can't play. I could never play in a big band in the section. I couldn't read that kind of difficult music. It's too. I'm not a good enough reader for that. I've worked in small groups all my life, and I mostly do play by ear. I mean, for me, it's much easier for me to learn a song without the music than it is for me to take a look at a chord sheet and learn that way. I can do it that way, but for me it's much faster to do it with my ears.
We have just a couple of questions to finish. One is you answered, I think, just before, but that's about this, that you prefer little venues to big concerts or jazz festivals. Is that
Yeah, I'm more comfortable playing in a small venue, yeah.
Okay, and the last one is there is a Spanish saying according to which the important thing is not really where you are born, but the way where you spend your life. So if you agree with that, we would like to know, where do you consider yourself to be from?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose New York City is my adopted, still my adopted home. But I feel I live in Italy, and I feel very much at home there. And I lived in London for many years, and I still feel that's a second home to me. There's a lot of places in the world that I love, and it's I'd hate to have to pick one now, you know.
That's not necessary either. It's not necessary. So okay, so this was our interview. So it's been very kind of you to giving us this interview.
No trouble at all. No
we
trouble.
will use a nice concert, a nice stay in Spain.
Thank you.
Next New Year and projects, and the best for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.